The termination letter was still warm in her hand when the call came. One signature. One decision. One man's livelihood gone. In just minutes after firing a single father for arriving late to work, powerful CEO Victoria Sterling heard words that made her blood run cold. Her 8-year-old daughter called the very man she had just fired her hero. Before we begin, if you believe kindness matters, that people deserve second chances, and that one act of compassion can change a life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The rain fell relentlessly over downtown Chicago, turning the city streets into rivers of reflected lights and blurred shadows. Inside the towering glass headquarters of Sterling Innovations, employees moved quickly through polished hallways, careful not to attract attention. Everyone knew today was not a good day. Victoria Sterling, one of the youngest CEOs in the country, was known for her intelligence, determination, and unwavering standards. She had built a struggling company into a billion-dollar success before turning 40. Investors admired her, competitors feared her, employees respected her, but few truly knew her. Behind the expensive suits, the confident speeches, and the magazine covers was a woman carrying wounds she rarely allowed anyone to see. Years earlier, she had lost her husband in a tragic accident. Since then, she had buried herself in work, convincing herself that success could fill the emptiness left behind. It never did. That morning had already been filled with pressure. A major investor meeting was approaching. Quarterly numbers were under scrutiny. Several important clients were demanding answers. Victoria had barely slept. As she reviewed reports in the executive conference room, her assistant entered quietly. There was concern in her eyes. One employee had arrived nearly an hour late. Again. His name was Daniel Carter. Daniel worked in facilities management. He wasn't a high-ranking executive. He wasn't someone who attended investor meetings or appeared in company newsletters. Most people barely noticed him. Yet his attendance record had recently become a problem. Victoria stared at the report. Late arrivals, emergency leave requests, schedule adjustments, excuses. At least that's how they appeared on paper. Without asking further questions, she made her decision. Rules were rules. If she made exceptions for one employee, others would expect the same. Minutes later, Daniel stood across from her office desk. His clothes were damp from the rain. Exhaustion darkened the circles beneath his eyes. His hands showed years of hard work. Victoria remained professional and distant. She explained that the company required reliability. She explained that repeated lateness could not continue. She explained that his employment was being terminated effective immediately. Daniel listened quietly. He did not argue. He did not beg. He simply lowered his eyes. For a brief moment, Victoria thought she saw heartbreak flash across his face. Not anger. Not frustration. Heartbreak. Then he nodded, accepted the envelope, and walked away. As the office door closed behind him, Victoria returned to her paperwork. The matter seemed finished, but life was about to reveal a truth no report could ever show. Across the city, Victoria's daughter Emily was finishing school. Unlike her mother, Emily possessed a heart that saw goodness everywhere. She noticed lonely classmates. She remembered birthdays. She thanked bus drivers. She believed every person had a story worth hearing. That afternoon, severe weather caused traffic accidents throughout the city. School buses were delayed. Parents received notifications of transportation issues. Victoria was still working when her phone rang. Seeing Emily's name brought a small smile to her face. She answered immediately. But instead of her daughter's cheerful voice, she heard panic. Emily was crying. The words came through broken sobs. Victoria's heart stopped. Her daughter had been caught near an intersection during a dangerous traffic incident involving a runaway vehicle. Thankfully, she was unharmed. Someone had pulled her to safety just seconds before disaster struck. Victoria felt overwhelming relief. Then she asked the obvious question. Who saved her? There was a pause. And then Emily answered. Her hero's name was Daniel. Daniel Carter. The man Victoria had fired less than an hour earlier. Silence filled the office. Victoria's mind struggled to process what she had heard. The same employee she had dismissed. The same man she had judged. The same man walking into an uncertain future because of her decision. He had risked himself to save her daughter. Without hesitation. Without knowing who she was. Without expecting anything in return. Victoria left the office immediately. For the first time in years, deadlines, reports, and business meetings no longer seemed important. Only one thing mattered: finding Daniel. The storm intensified as she drove through the city searching for answers. Eventually she arrived at the small hospital where Emily was being examined as a precaution. Her daughter rushed into her arms. Victoria held her tightly, tighter than she had in months, perhaps years. Emily eventually pointed toward the end of the hallway. There sat Daniel. His arm was bandaged. His jacket was torn. A bruise darkened one side of his face. Victoria learned that while pulling Emily away from danger, Daniel had been injured. Yet he had refused extensive treatment because he was worried about getting home. That detail confused her. Then she learned why. Daniel was raising a 7-year-old son alone. His wife had passed away after a long illness several years earlier. Since then, every responsibility rested on his shoulders. Every meal, every school pickup, every bedtime story, every doctor's appointment, everything. The late arrivals that appeared careless on company records suddenly looked very different. Those mornings often involved taking his son to medical treatments for a chronic condition. Sometimes buses ran late. Sometimes caregivers canceled unexpectedly. Sometimes life simply overwhelmed him. Yet every day he continued trying. Every day he kept moving forward. Every day he chose his son over convenience. Victoria felt a growing weight in her chest. She had seen attendance reports. But she had never seen the father behind them. She had seen numbers, not sacrifice. She had seen policy violations, not courage. For the first time in a long time, Victoria realized how easily success had separated her from understanding the struggles of ordinary people. As she watched Daniel sitting quietly in that hospital hallway, she felt something unfamiliar. Regret. Deep regret. Not because he had saved Emily. Even if he hadn't, she now understood she had judged a man without knowing his story. And that realization hurt more than she expected. The following days changed everything. Victoria began reviewing company policies personally. She met employees she had never spoken with before. She listened to their experiences, their challenges, their families, their dreams. For years she had managed a business. Now she was learning how to lead people. Meanwhile, Daniel focused on finding another job. He never contacted the company. Never complained publicly. Never demanded gratitude. He simply continued doing what he had always done. Taking care of his son. Putting one foot in front of the other. Refusing to give up. When Victoria finally visited his modest apartment, she saw a life filled not with luxury but with love. She saw school drawings covering the refrigerator. She saw handwritten notes of encouragement for his son. She saw a father sacrificing everything to create happiness despite hardship. And she saw something she hadn't seen in her own life for years. Purpose. Not the kind measured by profits. The kind measured by people. If this story is touching your heart so far, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to support more emotional stories that remind us of the power of kindness and compassion. As weeks passed, Victoria made a decision that surprised everyone. She offered Daniel his job back. But that wasn't all. She promoted him into a role helping develop employee support programs throughout the company. Not because he had saved her daughter, but because he understood people in ways many executives never could. The company introduced flexible schedules for single parents, emergency family assistance programs, childcare support initiatives, employee wellness resources. Lives began changing, families became stronger, morale improved, and productivity increased naturally. Sometimes the greatest business strategy is simply treating people like human beings. Before the ending, tell us in the comments, have you ever been judged by someone who didn't know your full story? Months later, during a company charity event, Emily stood on stage holding a small microphone. Hundreds of employees filled the room. Investors sat nearby. Executives occupied the front rows. Emily looked toward Daniel. Then she smiled. In her innocent way, she explained that heroes don't always wear uniforms. They don't always appear in movies. Sometimes they are ordinary people carrying extraordinary burdens. Sometimes they are fathers who keep going when life gives them every reason to quit. Sometimes they are people nobody notices. The audience rose in applause. Many wiped away tears. Victoria looked toward Daniel and realized something profound. The day she fired him had felt like a demonstration of strength. But true strength wasn't enforcing rules without compassion. True strength was admitting mistakes, learning, growing, choosing empathy. That rainy afternoon had changed 2 lives. Perhaps many more. Daniel had saved Emily from physical danger. But Emily had unknowingly saved her mother from becoming the kind of leader who forgot the humanity behind every employee badge. And years later, when people spoke about sterling innovations, they rarely mentioned quarterly profits or market success. They spoke about a company that cared. A company that understood. A company transformed by one father's courage and one little girl's gratitude. Because sometimes the most important heroes are not the people standing in the spotlight. They are the ones quietly carrying responsibilities no one sees. The ones who keep showing up despite exhaustion. The ones who choose kindness when life has been unkind to them. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment for the world to finally notice. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these inspiring stories reach more people around the world. And remember, every person you meet is fighting a battle you may know nothing about. A little compassion can change a life forever.